Good evening, my viewers. I'm very proud tonight to have an author on with me, Miss Susan Berliner. How are you tonight, Susan?
I'm fine, George, and thanks so much for inviting me on your show.
It's an honor to have you. You're my second author I've had on, and I should have had much more over the years because I'm very interested in books and writers. I met you at a Yorktown festival or fair. And you told me you have 3 books that you've authored.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the first one, Dust.
Yeah, Dust. I've always been a writer, but
Have you always had a desire to write?
yes, but I was a nonfiction writer, and then I worked for the Penny Saver for 20 years.
Fine organization in Yorktown.
Yes, and I always looked for little news items because I was the promotion manager. And I found a little newspaper article that said something about a dust devil knocking over an auto repair shop. And I guess it kind of imploded it, and it killed the man underneath. And I thought, what's a dust devil? I had no idea what this was.
Yes, I don't know what a dust devil is.
Neither did I. But they turn out that they're mini tornadoes. And they can just arise out of nothing on clear, calm spring days. And they can wreak havoc. Normally they don't kill people, but they just kind of whirl around. And this dust devil killed this man. And the officer who was there said, it was a very weird thing. And I thought, this is so weird, and it happens in Maine. So I figured Stephen King would write a book about dust devils. Put the article aside. And then when I left the Penny Saver a few years later, I was cleaning out my desk at home, and I found the article, and I realized I had an idea for a book. Stephen King had never written a book about dust. And I had an idea. And that turned into this novel. And this is about an evil swirl of dust, but my dust devil is red, green, and blue, and it really is trying to kill people.
Is it like a microburst or a mini tornado?
It's a mini tornado, but
I think we've had one of them in the Northeast last year. One went through a swath along the Sawmill Parkway and took down trees in its path and everything.
Yep. One happened right after this book came out in the Beekman Country Club in Hopewell, about a mile from where my daughter lives. It knocked over a golf cart and 2 golfers.
Wow.
So they happen all over the country, all over the world. They even happen in Mars. So
Mars, the planet Mars?
The planet Mars. So they're very interesting, and this is a story about a librarian and her ex-husband and an intuitive dog that fight this dust devil that attacks their condo here in the Northeast.
Oh, I don't want any micro dusts hitting my condo. I live in Peachwood in a condo, and you know, during the hurricane, that was quite frightening. Sandy sounded like a freight train coming through, and we have tall fir trees in our backyard. I think that helps save the homes up there. The God's fir trees, you know, evergreen trees.
Yes.
But Miss Berliner, or Susan, as you prefer, where did you get this burning desire to become an author? You told me your background was to teach originally.
Well, I taught for a year. Then I've always been a writer. And I was a newspaper reporter. I worked for Fairchild Publications in Manhattan. And I've always written, and I wrote nonfiction. I still write nonfiction with my husband. We do a lot of freelance writing. We do test passages. But it's not the same as fiction writing. It's a whole different thing.
How does one sit down, decide to write a book? How long does it take?
It depends.
Where do you get the ideas from?
Well, as I said, the idea from dust came from a newspaper article. Okay, the idea, Peachwood Lake.
What is
my second
Peachwood
book.
Lake about?
Peachwood Lake is about bad fish, and this
Bad fish.
also an evil fish. This also came from a newspaper article, but as opposed to this little bitty news release, this was a front page article in the New York Times one summer.
Wow.
It was the headline said something like, "It's summer, fish jumping, that's bad." I'm not sure of the exact title, but what happens is each summer in the Suwannee River in Florida, these fish jump out of the water, and they sometimes hurt boaters because they're Gulf sturgeon and they're very big and they're very bony. They could be.
Why do they jump out of the water?
Well, scientists don't know why. But these are
Do they
fish.
die when they jump out of the water?
No, they just jump out and go back. But they can be up to 200 pounds and 8 feet long.
Wow. You
So-
said they're sturgeon?
They're Gulf sturgeons. So because they're so big and bony, if these poor people are in a boat and the Gulf
Wow.
sturgeon hits them, they knock them unconscious.
Wow, I'm scheduled to go out with a Captain Johnny in Mamaroneck Harbor.
I don't think
Do I
there's-
have to worry about
No.
anything like that? A big fish jumping in the water?
I don't think so.
Or if I'm up in Cape Cod and we're out on whale expedition, do I have to worry about the whale jumping over the boat?
I don't think so. It's
No.
just that every summer that happens in the Suwannee River. So scientists, as I said, they have no idea why they're jumping. They're not trying to hurt people. They just jump. So I thought, well, what would happen, like I did with dust, if there's a fish that's in this peaceful lake? I decided to call it Peachwood Lake. And there is no such thing, although there is a Peach Lake in Brewster.
I've heard of that.
Yes, but this is Peachwood. And what would happen if this fish jumps out of the water and is really trying to hurt people? And that's Peachwood Lake.
Now, Susan, this sounds like very serious stuff. A dust storm, a fish jumping out of the water. Is there any romance in these books? Because I hear romance sells.
Not
No,
that
no.
much. Peachwood Lake, in addition to being about this fish, the heroine in Peachwood Lake is a 13-year-old girl. And it's a terrifying fish story, but she's got her own terrifying story about growing up. So it's kind of a combination.
So it's a human interest story as
It's
well.
one
About
re-
a 13-year-old girl
One-
growing up.
One reviewer called it a marvelous coming-of-age horror story because it's kind of a combination. The fish is doing its damage, and this girl who lives on this lake is dealing with, the whole thing with the fish, and she gets involved also, of course, and the fish is trying to go and kill people. So it's fun. But they're fun reading, and they're not that scary. They're just a lot of fun, and they're fast reading.
Is your husband an author as well?
Yes, he is.
What kind of books does he write?
Well, he's writing a humorous memoir based on all the things that his gripes with the world and part of his history, like when he was in ROTC, and his feelings about cell phones, which he doesn't like very much.
I'm in the same club as him.
You had mentioned that.
It annoys me so much. I'm at a red light, a person's in front of me, the light changes and they don't move. Now I know they have to be doing something and they're not paying
concentrating.
attention.
Yeah.
I don't know why, with this great fascination in every second of their life the modern young people today have with cell phones.
I know.
We lived without them. I know you're not in my age group, you're much younger. But
Not much, probably.
well, I'm 105.
Well, then I'm younger. Thank
no,
you.
I'm 39.
Then I'm older.
Do you know a guy who always said he was 30?
Jack Benny, yeah.
Oh, you have been around a
I
little
sure-
more.
I know
Wasn't
that.
he a great comedian?
One of my favorites.
Great storyteller.
I love
too.
Jack Benny.
So did I.
In fact, the dog in Dust, his name is Benny, named after Jack Benny.
Really?
Yep.
And so you know who Mary Livingston was?
Jack
And
Benny's wife,
do you know when
sure.
I first remembered Jack Benny? On the radio.
That,
Kids
no,
today wouldn't even know what a radio was.
no, I don't remember him from the radio, but I
Well,
sure
and
remember
Red
him.
Skelton, too.
I remember Red
And you know
Skelton.
what? I thought Red Skelton was a red skeleton. And I was so shocked when I saw black and white TV with rabbit ears, and he was a gentleman, But getting back to your books, and what's the third book you've written?
Okay. The Disappearance is a little different. You ask where I get my ideas.
Yes.
The Disappearance is not quite like the others because it's a time travel book. Now, obviously, I haven't read a newspaper article about time travel, unless you know something I don't.
No.
I have never heard of anybody who has time traveled, but I love books about
Well,
time
is
travel.
time traveling coming? Will there come a day
No, maybe.
when you walk into a booth, there'll be a sign that says Tokyo. You press a button, and in 30 seconds you're in Tokyo.
Well,
you think that's possible?
One of my favorite shows, Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
You know, they teleported. They just didn't, it didn't even take 30
But is
seconds.
that so far-fetched?
I don't
Because
know.
let's go back 100 years before airplanes were invented, rocket ships, or cars even.
Of course.
Who would have ever thought you could cross across America in 3 hours or 2 hours?
But
so,
time travel, I don't know. There's a little more in that. But
so what is time travel?
okay, so time travel is so much fun because I always, as I said, it's one of my favorite genres in literature. So I decided, let me make a book about time travel. And the great thing about time travel is, since it doesn't exist, at least yet, you could do whatever you want with it.
Wow.
You can teleport like H.G. Wells did in a chair. You can have a time portal. People can dream and come, you know, at a different time. I've seen it done all different ways. And in my story, it's a thriller also. The heroine here is framed for her boyfriend's murder. He frames her for his murder, and then he disappears. And she can't find him, and the reason, of course, she can't find him at first is he's traveled to another time. So she's got to find out, first of all, why he did this, why he hates her so much, and bring him back. And the end part of this book involves a huge sting, a huge con.
Now don't
thing.
tell us the whole story.
No, I'm just
or
going to
people
tell you,
won't read it.
that there's a sting involved because if you know the movie The Sting, remember that
oh,
great,
yes.
one of my
Excellent.
favorites.
Robert Redford.
And yes, and Paul Newman.
Yes.
And this has a huge, huge sting at the end of it.
I met Paul Newman once and Jackie Gleason in Yonkers, where I used to live. They filmed a scene from The Hustler in a restaurant called Seven Wells on Wells Avenue. So I saw them for a short time. Very interesting people.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So this is my latest book. This is my newest book, and I think it's a lot of
Now,
fun.
what do you do to promote your books? Can you be seen anywhere in the Yorktown, Peekskill, Cortland area
Well,
in the near future?
Yes, in the future, on July 11th, I will be at Kirby's Bar and Grill.
Fine restaurant,
Yes.
Irish restaurant and grill in
Yorktown. It's on Keir Street, and I'll be there from 5 to 8 p.m. signing books with a fellow author who has some excellent children's books and an excellent children's book and a parenting book, and we'll be there signing. And then I believe it's the 28th of July, I'm in Cortland for a craft fair. There's a huge craft fair in Cortland.
Where will that be held at?
I think it's in St. George Island, I believe.
Oh, yes,
is that
I
yeah?
know where that is.
So they're having a huge fair. It's a commemoration of Cortland,
And Cortland's a fine town. I
Yep.
know the town supervisor very well, Linda Puglisi, and she does a great job with keeping taxes down and taking care of veterans, of one of which I am
terrific.
a veteran. Yes.
I'm glad to hear it
I'm
because
a member of her veterans organization. She's fought very hard to keep the VA hospital open. Our federal government wanted to sell it out to developers. Can you believe that? Maybe you want to write a book about something about that someday.
my books are pretty supernatural.
Oh,
I don't
supernatural.
know.
Speaking of that, are you working on any new books, Ms.
Well,
Susan?
Yes, I have. My fourth book that's actually been written, but it's not completely edited, is called Corsonia, and that one. All my books, these have all been set in the Northeast, in the kind of Northeast, the Westchester, northern Westchester, and Connecticut area, but Corsonia is set in northeastern Nevada.
Oh, wow.
It's a little different. It's a story about a couple of teenage girls from the New York area who travel on a cross-country vacation. to celebrate their high school graduation. And they kind of run into a very strange town. And this is a mind control book, another one of my favorite topics. So this is all about mind control.
Mind control?
Mind
you mean
control.
Like the government tries to do and
Yeah.
the media tries to do with most Americans?
Yeah, but it's, it's the way your mind is controlled. So this is kind of a fun, different kind of book. And the one I'm working on right now that I'm writing is called The Touchers. And it's my doomsday. Every author who writes in this genre, I think, has an end of the world, doomsday kind of Armageddon kind of book.
Yes.
And this is mine. It's called The Touchers. And unlike a lot of writers, end of world. How do you end the world? You have some sort of nuclear war. You have some sort of dreaded disease.
How about a nuclear accident at a nuclear
plant? You could have that. You can have an asteroid hitting the Earth, all of these aliens invading, all of these things. My world doesn't end that way. My world ends in bubbles.
Bubbles?
Bubbles. It's kind of a gentler way of ending the world. So I'm writing this book. It's also got a teenage protagonist, and I'm writing this in a first person, so it's a little different.
I can tell you really
love
enjoy writing.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Has this been an avocation with you after you retired from the newspaper writing business?
It's sort of become into that, it's become that. It's a lot of fun because I said that I had been a nonfiction writer, and that novel writing is so different. I'll tell you how it's, because people ask, how is it different? You're still writing. Well, when you write nonfiction as a newspaper reporter, you're writing facts, or if I'm writing any sort of story based on information, you gather information, then you make an outline, you put everything together. But when you write a novel, I found it so different. When I started writing Dust, I had my characters, I had a basic idea of the plot, and I knew what my story was going to end. But I didn't know the in-between part. And I sat down and I thought, I have to outline this. But that's not what happens. What happens is I sit at the computer and I start typing, and my characters take over. Wow. And they talk for me. They kind of write their own dialogue and do their own things. And a lot of times, I have no idea what they're going to do.
Do you spend 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day
writing? I don't spend that much time writing. My writing time is more like an hour or so. And then there's time.
How long does it take you to complete one novel?
Maybe a year, but not with this one's taking longer, The Touchers. And one of the reasons it's taking so long is, I told you, the characters kind of take over. They're writing their own story, which I thought was so bizarre, but it's wonderfully entertaining. When I thought I was finished with The Touchers, I thought I came to the end of the book. I had written about 80,000 words, which is quite a lot. It's about the size of the Disappearance. My characters wouldn't end the story. They did not let me end the book. So now I'm writing what I call part 2 of it.
Oh, so when it's converted to a movie, it'll be out part 1, part 2, part 3, 100 million or $1 billion seller.
I sure hope so. People have said my books would make great movies. They're very kind of, because I think in the way of a play and a movie. When I'm writing, I have my characters like actors walking on and off stage. So it kind of translates into movie.
So did you actually take courses in college to learn how to write a book? How did you know how to put a beginning, a middle, and an ending and make a novel out of it?
As I said, I've been a writer my whole life, but I didn't study, writing. I took a lot of writing and literature courses, and I've always been writing, but I did not take an actual writing course.
Someday I have to take the step you took, because many people have come up to me and said, you have a great story behind you, you ought to write. So maybe I'll do that in my later years.
And in your spare time.
And in my spare time, when I'm not drinking coffee, socializing, or whatever.
Or doing your TV shows.
Or doing my TV shows. Now, I learned a little bit about you before the show. You were also a reporter.
Yes.
And you interviewed some famous sports people. Who did you interview?
I interviewed Tom Seaver. I interviewed Rick Barry. Who else did I interview?
I just interviewed Eli Manning of the
you
News,
mentioned,
and
yeah.
he's a wonderful person, down to earth, nothing like you would expect a superstar to be.
But he is that kind of a superstar. That's my husband's favorite team, the Giants. So I
Giants,
know
yes.
Eli Manning is very quiet, very reserved, and I know he's involved with Guiding Eyes.
Yes, for the blind, a Yorktown
Yes.
and Somers organization.
Yes.
And
So-
he volunteers his time there, and I volunteered my TV show to cover it at the Mount Kisco Country Club.
Wonderful.
And what a nice, unassuming man he is.
He is quiet.
I asked him a key question a journalist would ask. I said, there's 3 quarterbacks in your family, your father, your brother, and you're the younger sibling. But you've won 2 Super Bowls. So do you tell them I'm the number 1 quarterback? And he gave me a very diplomatic answer. He said, I'm the number 1 quarterback for the New York Giants.
Right. And Peyton is the number 1 quarterback.
And then I urged him to talk to the owners of the Giants and make sure they signed a Mr. Nix and a Mr.
Cruz.
And they did sign him yesterday.
Yes, they did.
Because I want to see more salsa in the end zone and Super Bowl wins by the Giants.
Unfortunately, I'm a Jet fan, so I don't.
Jet fan. We're
I
ending
don't-
this conversation.
I don't have that.
How could you go for that
know.
team? Except
Sad.
Super Bowl III, where
Yes.
Joe Namath and that team practice at Torpy Stadium in Peachwood, where the high school is, and they won their one and only Super Bowl.
Yeah, a long time ago.
But I'm afraid the Jets are falling apart
know.
now. I think they need a new quarterback, and I think they need a new coach. One with more moralistic values than this coach, but
They need a lot better players.
Yes.
That would help.
yes. But we sort of got sidetracked. So you have written these books. Where do you see yourself going in the future with your writing career?
I as I said, I'm writing more books, and I promote them. I think you had mentioned them before. I have a website.
How does one get a publisher?
Well, you can publish. These days, you don't have to go through the traditional route and go look for publishers because there aren't many out there. The publishing companies have kind of dwindled. So most people just can publish themselves, including well-known authors.
Now, I've heard some books have really taken off being
Yeah.
on the internet.
Oh, sure. My books are all available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and they're in
Do you
ebooks
ever
also.
appear at Barnes & Noble
Yes.
in Cortland?
I certainly do. I was there last month.
Oh, and
Yeah.
you didn't. I didn't meet you till after then, I
Yeah,
guess.
Barnes & Noble does
It's a
have
wonderful
events.
store, by the way.
Yeah, for local authors. Unfortunately, it's basically our only bookstore. We don't have very many anymore because
And
everything's on the
places
internet.
you may want to try is the Field Library in Peekskill. How
I
about
do-
the Shrub Oak Library?
I've been there many times. I do
Okay.
events in the Shrub Oak Library. I have given library talks about writing and about how to become a writer. I've talked in.
It's so funny about your career. You told me you didn't take formal classes in learning how to write a novel. I've been on TV 15 years and have done over 600 shows. And I didn't take any major courses in college. I was a business major, a BBA from Pace University.
Well, this is business, so I guess
This is business. This is fun talking. Writing is fun to you.
It is.
It
It's
has to be a joy
entertaining.
in your life to be an author.
As I
you
said,
said.
I've been an author. I've written quite a few books on education books. I've written books on basically on writing, and I've written books on vocabulary and all different types of books. But these are
I've got
different.
another setting for you to write a book one day.
Okay.
On Cape Cod. Or maybe you can write a modern day Moby Dick novel. How's
I already
that?
did my fish story.
Or how about one on Canadian geese?
Taking over, they kind of do.
Yes. Or on a heartwarming story about a tiger, or or an animal? Have you ever thought about that? Because I'm an animal lover, by the way.
Yeah.
I love the wild birds of the Hudson, including the Canadian geese, and I love our web-footed friends and our four-footed friends.
Well, I love birds. We have a bird feeder outside my
That's
house,
nice.
and we watch birds all the time.
Right.
So I like animals
So
too.
you may want to write a story about animals one day. You know, there's a lot of I hear something like
Maybe.
$20 billion a year in America is spent on animal care and food. So it may be a good audience to tap into one day.
Possibly, but you know, I have to go with what I really enjoy
Yes.
doing and what
Yes.
hits me. I have ideas all the time, and it depends on.
And that's
what
the way I
develops.
am with my TV show. I have ideas all the time. I can meet someone, and if I feel they would be good on television, that's when they become a guest on the George Ondek show. And you seem to be very interesting when I talk to you at that fair.
I appreciate it, George. I really do. So.
And we're very close to the end of the show. I'd say we're 2 to 3 minutes away. Do you have anything you want to say in closing? Is there a website or a phone number where you would want people to reach you?
Well, my website again is www.susanberliner.com. I just want to mention that my books, as I said, they're available in Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can order them at bookstores, and they are available as ebooks. Also, they're great reading for teens through adults. And all ages. I've sold a book to a 100-year-old lady too.
Really?
So 9-year-olds
You mean
to
you
100.
sold a book to my mom? My mom on January 27th turned 100 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Congratulations to
Yes,
her.
and
No, that's
I'm
wonderful.
very proud of that. I'm very proud of her also.
Yeah, no, that's terrific.
But wow, a 100-year-old person even read your book. That's
Yeah.
quite an accomplishment.
And the funny thing is, this was during a tornado warning in Ossining, and I sold a copy of Dust, which is about the mini tornado, and her name
Right.
was Dorothy, like in The
think-
Wizard of Oz.
Right. What'd you think of The Wizard of Oz?
I love that. I love that movie.
In Peachwood, they're converting a lot of things with The Wizard of Oz in mind, because Mr. Baum, I think his name was, who wrote the book,
Mr. Baum, yes.
he spent a year in Peachskill,
Oh,
so we're
did
putting
he?
yellow brick roads in, and
Wonderful.
And,
Well, I love fantasies, as you know. These
that is one of the greatest stories and movies of all time.
Yes, it
And
is.
so is The Sound of Music. My wife and I must have seen that 100 times already, and we don't get tired of it.
Right.
So when you have a great novel or a great story, it sells, right? You just have to be discovered.
Exactly. Well, I hope some of your viewers will try my
Well,
books.
my
and
worldwide viewers on YouTube,
I hope they'll take a look at
so
my
they
books.
would hit youtube.com. Oh no, YouTube, and then my name, and then your name.
Yeah, and I hope they'll take a look because they're fast, fun reads.
And we have only 30 seconds left. So in closing, what do you want to say, Susan?
Well, I appreciate you having me on as a guest. I've loved being here and talking about my books and learning a little more about you.
And it's been an honor to
Thank
have
you.
Susan Berliner
Thank you
from
so much.
Yorktown on my show.
Thank
This
you.
has been George Ondek. Be sure you read a copy of Dust, The Disappearance, or Peachwood Lake.
Thank you so much.
Truly
George.
enjoyable reading.
Thank you so much,
And thank
George.
you.
I really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay, till next time, read books. Even if it's on that new device they have
Oh,
now.
the Kindle.
Kindle. What do you think about that?